We are live.
Well, welcome everyone and good morning. Thanks again for tuning in for our Communications Committee meeting for South Nation Conservation. More information on our committees and our meeting packages can be found online at nation.on.ca. And I'll turn it over to our chair, interim chair for the day, Bill Smurl, to start off our meeting.
Good morning, everyone. And the brief remarks I have are that I don't know how you found it, but the last couple of weeks of August and the first few weeks of September have been really busy and all sorts of activity. And you know, for the COVID and the problems we've had there has been a heck of a lot of activity by South Nation staff, by the fishing groups that were put together. And so it's been, I think, a reasonably successful summer, even with all the other problems. So with those brief comments, it's approval of the Communications Committee agenda that's been supplied. And John, help me, but I believe we're having a supplemental agenda with a 1A added.
We do indeed. There is a supplemental agenda package that was circulated a few days ago. Staff would like to recommend, with the support of the committee, that we amend our meeting agenda such that we move supplemental agenda item 1A, the community environmental grants approval, onto the main agenda and to join the report found on item 6I on the main agenda package. So we would be looking for a mover and seconder to support amending the package so we can put those environmental grant approvals together.
Doug Thompson will move that.
Seconded?
Jerry.
Okay, duly moved and second. Is there any objection? Hearing none, we've approved that. Now a motion to approve the agenda as amended.
I see Byron, Mr. Chair.
So Byron and Doug moved and seconded. Is there any objection? Then thank you. We have an agenda. A declaration of conflict of interest. Does anyone have a declaration to so make? Hearing or seeing none. Communications project update, PowerPoint presentation. Aft. Turn to you, John.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So as usual, we'll start the meeting off with a few updates from our staff on some of the various work that we've undertaken since the last meeting. To start, obviously, the team, as introduced to you in the summer, we have Shannon Gutowski, Shannon Murray, and Kelsey Smith supporting the work that we do, and our committee member, Cindy Saucier, also supports some of our outreach work part-time. As always, we continue to post updates on our operations at nation.on.ca/coronavirus. Our team keeps this page up to date with any changes to our operations, whether they be scheduling or program changes, contact list, site visits, etc. So you can expect that all of our program updates are always posted there. And the sign that's visible in this slide deck is the current guidance that we have posted in our offices and facilities. Wanted to start off the meeting by recognizing that we were able to secure some support from summer students this year, and staff were very grateful to have been able to have summer students on our team to help with work within the SNC forest, our conservation areas, and also supporting our natural hazard work and projects that we have ongoing. So we were able to welcome 6 students this summer, and just at the end of the summer, we were able to get together for a small outdoor gathering at the office to say thank you to them and wish them well as they return to school on their future endeavors. And our team also issued a press release on August 20th to recognize the support that our students provided. Thank you. Kelsey.
I'm sorry. Good morning, everyone. So we did have a Mcintosh Park Memorial Committee meeting on the 24th in August. We had updates on the Floyd Dingwall recognition options. So far, $3,000 in donations were received. There was an update on the ash tree management and the tree as an application, the donor recognition wall, the SNC fundraising policy and the memorial tree donations, and the property maintenance needs along the pathway in the park. So we do have another meeting scheduled for next Tuesday, September the 21st. If anyone is interested in attending or has any questions, please let me know.
Question, will it be by Zoom or by team, or will it be in person?
We will be meeting in person at the park once again.
Thank you. And I see a question from Tim, Mr. Chair.
I'm sorry, say again, sir.
I see a question from Tim Jackson. Do you want to go ahead, Tim?
Go ahead, Tim. And Tim's
Hi,
with us. Good.
So just had a question about the Mcintosh Park and maintenance. It was reported to me that there's the very interesting historical "Did you know" plaques on the rocks, and one of them about the cheese factory went missing. Is that managed by us or the committee, and or perhaps that could be mentioned to the committee for maybe a replacement or maybe not.
Yeah, great comment, Tim. A bit of both, obviously. We work in consultation with the committee to work on some of those updates. We can replace that plaque. We noticed it was missing as well. We recently just replaced the big sign that you can see at the top of that gate in that picture. That picture is actually a little bit old. We had 3 of the letters fall off this year. So that sign was replaced, and we will be replacing that interlocking pathway leading to that entrance. And I think there's 3 plaques that we're hoping to replace this fall. So we'll make a note of that, Tim, and we'll make sure that's replaced. Thank you. See a question from Tom.
Yeah, maybe I'm supposed to know this, but I can't remember. Can you bring me up to date on possible Floyd recognition options? What's going on there?
Absolutely, great question. And it was a topic of discussion at our last meeting. We wanted to canvass some of those committee members for feedback on how we want to recognize Floyd in the park and also recognize him within the community. So it was agreed at the last meeting that we would look to create a plaque dedication in the park, probably on one of the larger rocks at the beginning of the park entrance.
Yeah, I remember.
The committee also agreed that it would be fitting to recognize Floyd and unveil that recognition next year at the family barbecue that we usually would host in July for the Berwick and North Stormont community, something we haven't been able to host during the pandemic, but something that was very important to Floyd. So the committee has directed us to host a recognition event next summer to coincide with that event.
Thanks.
For sure. Thank
Further
you.
questions? And thank you, John, for keeping track of the hands because I'm not seeing them all. Thanks a lot. Then if there are no further questions, next one. Kelsey.
All right. So just a quick update on our conservation area usage. So our areas are available by donation to be used by community groups and residents. We just ask that a free facility use permit is required, that they must fill out ahead of time. So throughout the summer, there's been yoga in the park that has been taking place at the W.E. Burton Conservation Area in Russell. This yoga was taught by Carrie every Sunday throughout the summer. SNC supports requests for private gatherings in line with local COVID-19 guidelines, including family gatherings, barbecues, photo ops, as well as wedding ceremonies. And there's a photo there of the last yoga in the park that they did.
Thanks, Kelsey. I see a question from Tom.
Do we charge for gatherings in our areas, such as the yoga? Do we charge for that?
No, in our current fee structure, we don't charge for park rentals, but we do accept donations. And we find on average, a majority of the park users provide a donation. So in this particular case, the yoga in the park provided a monthly donation that would be directed back into the park.
Okay.
And I see a question from Doug.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. To John, do we, just curious, these people that use the parks and other facilities, are they counted in the number of people who visit SNC facilities? For example, the yoga, would that go towards a count of people who are visitors to SNC facilities?
Absolutely, great question, Doug. Yes, but obviously our park estimates are exactly that estimate.
Yeah.
So at these parks, we do have trail counters and parking lot counters. And so we assume that as long as they access through the monitored gate, that they would be tracked. There obviously are challenges with those trackings where we have parks with multiple entrances, Tweed, for example, Burton. If a lot of people are accessing it by foot, those numbers aren't necessarily tracked in the visitation. So we don't add numbers in addition to what our actual counters track, but we do assume that they access the site from the same entrance. But obviously that just means that our numbers are approximate.
Okay, thanks very much.
Sure.
Further questions? Seeing none, moving on.
Next slide again on our conservation areas. We do have a big focus this fall to clean up some of our sites, restore some of our trails, and largely remove a lot of ash trees, and hopefully this fall in October plant some more trees in some of our landscape park areas. So this slide is just to update the committee on some of the focuses from August and September in our conservation areas, and that all of these focuses and work activities are promoted online on social media, and if necessary, letters to residents and neighbors to let them know about the work that's going on in some of the different parks. And I will say, since the work specifically was completed at Robert Graham Conservation Area over the last few weeks, we have received several written letters of thanks from some of the neighbors in the area who use the park frequently, who've noticed a dramatic change in the way the park looks. So we're really happy to see that's very positive, and we'll continue to post updates on the work that we do in our parks on social media. And Mr. Chair, I see a question from Doug.
Sorry, I forgot to put my hand down.
All good, thank you, Doug.
Seeing no other questions, moving on.
Good morning, everybody. Just picking up on the last point in the last slide with respect to Mill Run Conservation Area, it is officially open. We issued a press release last week, September the 9th, to indicate that it is now officially open to the public, and it is the first public and maintained river access to the South Nation River in Augusta Township. So some of the work that was completed to make this possible includes a parking lot, a trail to the river, site cleanup, new tree plantings, and signage. And it is a 9-acre parcel of land. We look forward to having a more official opening in the spring of next year.
Questions, comments? I think it's great that we now have that entry to the river in that area. Thanks a lot. Moving on.
The next slide is an update on some of the funding we recently received. So definitely good news on this front. We were able to receive some federal funding to support a washroom replacement at the High Falls Conservation Area in Castleman. That work is planned to take place through 2022 and 2023, and our team will be working with the municipality this fall to work on a new site and drainage plan for the area. So this would be to replace the privy that we have closed at that facility for the last few years, and would hopefully create a new washroom facility on site to be used. So we're looking forward to this project. There's a few other components that are in the works of the municipality, and we do have several additional funding requests out there to support some dock expansions and waterfront rehabilitation should funding, should we be successful in receiving additional funding. So just an update that we have received some, it's in the bank, and we're looking forward to working on this project over the next few years.
Questions? Seeing none, moving on, John.
Quick comment on the tree risk assessments that have been taking place in our parks. So we did have a discussion at our July meeting around how many of these trees were ash trees, what was the composition between, trees that we were marked for removal, trees that we do remove, and how much of that has been caused by the emerald ash borer. So just wanted to provide a quick update and share some stats with the committee for interest. Through the tree risk assessments that have been completed at our conservation area sites, over 800 trees have been marked for removal because they've either are dead, dying, or at risk of falling adjacent to a trail. Pictured in the slide is one of the trees marked in Jessups Falls, for example. And 78% of all the trees marked for removal this year have been ash trees that have been affected by the emerald ash borer. So just for information, thank you.
John, a question to you. Has any of our municipalities or any of our other areas been in touch with us about trees and any teamwork on removing trees? Because there are sure a heck of a lot of them around the municipalities.
Certainly, we've had some discussions with staff. I will say that the counties of SDNG have retained several tree management companies to support tree removals along county roadways, and we've been in touch with them to coordinate some of this work, especially where there are trees along the boundary of some of our properties, Castbridge Conservation Area, for example, and coordinating with their team to make sure that we can do those removals together in an efficient way. So from a municipal perspective, I know every municipality is trying to do things a little bit differently to fit their needs, but certainly the counties have moved ahead with taking some trees down along their county roadways.
Thank you. Further questions? Doug?
Thank you. This is to John, Mr. Chair. I know that there are a lot of these trees on private property, so will South Nation be working through different organizations, like different farmer organizations, to get the word out that South Nation is doing this, and hopefully that the landowners would, I mean, it would be at their own cost, but I think it's something that, and maybe you're already doing this, getting the message out to, not just to the municipalities or through the municipalities, to see if landowners would start removing some of their trees that are damaged.
Certainly, and thank you for the question, Doug. With respect to Ottawa, obviously we have the Ottawa Ash Tree Replacement Program. We do talk to residents in that city every day. All those requests don't often result in a grant or a request for funding, but they do result in resources being shared to help people remove the trees. Our focus for the rest of the watershed has been on our properties and on the neighboring properties. So for example, if there's an ash tree on our property or on the boundary of our property, we have been in touch with the neighbors, or vice versa, neighbors have reached out to us, and we will coordinate the removal of those ash trees if they're on the property boundary. There's a few examples around some of our parks where the trees aren't on our property but are within falling distance on our property, and what Shannon and Phil have done is sent out letters to all of the adjacent landowners letting them know that we've seen a tree on their property, that we've ID'd it, and that we recommend that it should be removed. And in a few instances, we've worked with a few neighbors to help coordinate a contractor to do it together to save time and money. So our focus right now, Doug, has been on our property, on the SCG County Forest property, and those adjacent properties.
Thank you for that, John. I'm quite familiar with the Ottawa program because people have contacted me and contacted South Nation. And I know that South Nation is working with municipalities to see if perhaps if they could start that program. But since I don't know if there's much of an uptake with municipalities outside of Ottawa, but I guess it would just be a good idea to try to promote it through our newsletters for landowners to maybe start on their own, and maybe there would be enough interest there that they would start pressing their municipalities to put forward a program.
Certainly, thank you. And we'll plan to send an updated memo to council to our municipalities again this fall with some of the program details and some stats on removal. And I think we do plan to send memos to all of the City of Ottawa councillors this week to promote the Ottawa Ash Tree program as well. Mr. Chair, I see a question from Byron.
Byron?
To you, John. Are there more trees scheduled to come out of Jessup Falls, or did we remove them all last year?
Great question. We had all those removed over the winter. There were a few additional trees that were recommended for removal from our forest who were visited, I think, in the month of July. But those we'll plan to replace, Byron, with landscape trees in October.
Okay.
Further questions? Then I have one for you, John. Some of us have been mentioning to the municipalities what has been done in Ottawa and recommending they might want to consider a program similarly or similar to that. Have you had any outreach from any municipalities about that possibility to date?
In previous years, yes, Bill. To date, the only municipality that's reached out with interest is the town of Hawkesbury.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Move on to the next update, Mr. Chair. Yeah, thank you. Just wanted to share a few stats on our tree planting program. September is a big month for us in promoting the program. It's one of our last chances to connect with people to help schedule site visits so that we can order trees for the spring. So we do spend a considerable amount of time in September connecting with landowners, running ads, and doing promotions online. So just a summary, last year was our record tree planting program. We did secure almost 230,000 trees to be planted throughout the region through our various programs, and staff actually planted nearly 50,000 trees on their own through the month of May. So far this year, we have reserved a considerable amount of trees, and it is very likely that we will be planting more than 200,000 trees next year again. And depending on how the next 2 months go with site visits and orders as they're received, it is possible that we might meet that record or exceed it again. So the next few months we'll be watching. I did want to provide an update on the distribution of those trees. It does look like we have about 120,000 trees specifically reserved for some of those larger planting sites that we facilitate through the 50 million tree program. So that's the program where we do provide seedlings for a very low cost, around 20 cents per seedling, depending on the species. So very, very cost effective, and lots of trees being reserved through that program. We also have about 60,000 trees that are reserved for the Low Rose Forest under plantings next year as well. So definitely going to be a big year for us. And I'll turn it over to Shannon to talk about some of the different ways that we promote this program in the fall.
Yes, thank you, John. So as you mentioned, we are doing a social media campaign to get people interested and aware that this is happening. Of course, we want to schedule the site visits as soon as possible before the snow flies. And according to Environment Canada, we're in for a wicked winter. So the earlier we can get those scheduled and get the boots on the ground for planning for spring, obviously, the better. We've sent out a press release, and actually, I'm just looking at a full page story in the review that picked the story up, so that's great. It's getting a lot of legs, and also targeted advertising as well. And we do look forward to continuing to promote this throughout the month of September and get those free site visits booked.
Questions? Doug?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I understand that South Nation is going to have a booth at the Medcalf Fair coming up in 2 weeks. So would this be one of the things that you would be highlighting at the booth that you're going to have at the fair?
Yeah, I can take that. Absolutely. Amongst our other programs, we will certainly be promoting that at the fair. I believe it's the 30th is when we'll be setting up, Thursday the 30th, and it'll go that whole weekend. So we're looking forward to attending that. I think it'll be one of the first fairs we've been able to attend in person.
Yes, thank you. Yes, and we're excited to have you there. So thank you.
Further questions? I have one on the last slide. Of the trees that are reserved for over the counter, the 5,000 trees, are they ones that people have called in and asked about, or are they on speculation?
That number is based on forms we've received, so actual requests to date, Bill. And it's a good comment to make, because that is the total that we usually, it starts to increase in the spring. We do let people for the over-the-counter program make their reservations right up until February 1st of next year, while supplies last. And it's through this program where people do have to plant the trees on their own. And so what we do is we secure them, we bag them, and we deliver them. And then it's up to the landowner to plant them on their own. Through the other programs, we plant the trees for them.
Thank you. Further? Seeing none, moving on. Kelsey?
Oh, sorry. So on Thursday, October the 14th, at the Healing Place that we planted trees at last year, we'll be having a journey to reconciliation for remembering the children. So this is in the township of Edwardsburg Cardinal. And John, I'm not sure if I'm right on this, but is anyone able to attend, or is this a closed?
Yeah, certainly. Good question, Kelsey. We do plan to do some promotion in the coming weeks. We did want to wait to make sure that restrictions and COVID measures were going to be appropriate for the event. We are working in consultation with the Eastern Ontario First Nations Working Group to coordinate the RSVPs for this event. I believe they have a meeting coming up next week, and after that, we will be sending invitations out. And as Kelsey suggested, we are hoping that this would be an in-person event and that we would be able to welcome a substantial amount of people who are interested to the ceremony.
And photoed is the new property entrance sign that was recently installed at the site. So we're excited about that.
Will it be will it be open to all that apply at this stage?
Yes, that's the expectation, Bill. However, registration will be required. So we will make sure that people RSVP in advance with their information.
And the times will be?
At this point, I think it's suggested for a 10 a.m. start, but once that working group has their meeting, we'll share the details with our board and committees and the public.
Thank you. Next.
Good morning, committee members. Happy to see you all again today. I just wanted to provide a brief update on pollinator initiatives. So the SNC visited the property of Christina Enright to capture some footage of her Butterfly Way project, Monarch Habitat. And this will be used in online promotion throughout this coming month and following. The SNC also hosted their last SDG network meeting on August 18th, and all municipal public works staff have now been invited to CWF's Eastern Ontario Community of Practice. And this is one of the first videos that we've created for highlighting the Butterfly Way project and Christina Enright's Monarch Habitat. So we'd love to share it with you today.
Shannon, do I have to do anything to have it come up? I just have one picture on the screen, and am I different than everyone else?
Yes, that's correct. The audio should be playing, Bill. The video will end in a few seconds.
Okay.
That video didn't play for you. Apologies. This is a draft that we're hoping to share on social media this week. And I think for committee members' benefit, we can circulate this video by email as well, so you can view it.
We're able to play it ourselves.
Yeah.
Byron, did I see a question from you?
Byron, do you have a comment?
Yes. The question I had was, did this lady do all of this by herself? Like, did she plant the flowers and everything, or did we contribute to it?
That's correct. This is definitely her own initiative. She is one of the David Suzuki's Butterfly Way Rangers for the area. She is a resident of South Dundas, and her, along with a few other volunteers in SDNG, have been doing a lot of work this summer to help find milkweed habitat, to promote it on social media. They've got a great Facebook group together to help showcase different seeds and flowers to use that support pollinators. And one of her family members actually built her that white building in the back of the photo on the previous slide to house the butterflies. So I think at any time she had several hundred monarchs that she was raising through her special collector's permit in her little Butterfly Way garden.
John, perhaps if people have missed it or forgotten, there was an video or information supplied regarding the project, and that they were open to others being interested. If I remember correctly, a while back. Can that be circulated again sometime?
Absolutely. We'll be using an online promotion, but I think we'll follow up with this meeting with an email with that link to that webinar we hosted, co-hosted with the group. We showcased some of Christina's work in that webinar, and we'll use this video as well for promotion. I think community members will also recall that we did approve 2 community environmental grants to support this initiative, and that funding is supposed to be directed to a fall workshop, and also to help support the creation of Butterfly Way signs that people within the watershed can post if they create their own pollinator garden to support monarch habitat. And
Thanks,
so that's
John.
in development. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, John. Are there any further questions, comments? I look forward to being reminded of that information, John. Thanks. Seeing nothing further, moving on.
Just a final
John?
comment on pollinators and with respect to the Mill Run Conservation Area, we did apply for funding through the Canadian Wildlife Federation to support the creation of a community pollinator garden. And we picked the Mill Run Conservation Area site because it does have a meadow on the property, mostly goldenrod at this point, but it is a really ideal site for a pollinator habitat. And we did work with the municipality to help local beekeepers install some beehives across the street from this property at the municipal, an additional municipal property. So this site would work really great for pollinator habitat, and we're happy to report that we were successful in receiving money, about $15,000, that will be directed to that park next year to help create a proposed wildlife meadow at that place. So we're looking forward to that, and that work will basically take us from summer through to fall. Wildflower seeding is preferentially done in the fall. So we'll be looking forward to that work next year.
Thanks, John. Tom, question?
Oh, Tom, I don't know if you unmuted yourself, sorry.
Going back to the lady who did all the pollinator work on her own, as we just discovered, are we now partnering with this woman?
Certainly. I mean, we're partnering with the SDG Butterfly Way volunteers, which she, is definitely the champion and leader of that group of people, along with some other people within South Dundas. So we are partnering on the workshops. We are partnering on supporting the distribution of signs, but much of this work is done on her own. And she definitely is a local environmental champion on that front.
Is South Nation getting some credit for partnering on this?
I think our partner municipalities are encouraged to see that we're working with the volunteers on this, and I think that partnership helps bring additional spotlight to the challenges surrounding pollinator habitat.
Supplemental, Tom? Hearing nothing. I think you will be extremely interested in seeing the information that John will be circulating. And there, besides Christine, there was another lady, I think from South Stormont, and the two of them were instrumental in leading the project. And as I said, you will be interested in reviewing what John is going to send out. Thanks, John. Go ahead.
Supplemental side on our drinking water source protection program, we do continue to support the communications and outreach work with respect to source water protection. Recently, we did create a new annual newsletter that summarizes some of the changes to the source protection plan, specifically directed to municipalities and specifically directed to municipal councillors, as it is their responsibility to implement the Clean Water Act. However, in our jurisdiction, we are contracted to deliver this program on their behalf. So the team worked on an annual newsletter that was sent to all clerks, deputy clerks, and CAOs to be distributed to councils last month. And we intend to do this on an annual basis to help remind our politicians of drinking water source protection and of the work that's been going on to support drinking water in their region. Thank you.
Any further questions? I might just comment that my son Glenn developed a pollinator area of 2 or 3 acres and last fall, I guess, and it's been recognized as, and about 2 weeks ago, it was a massive yellow and also some purple flowers, and the yellow flowers are still there. So it's quite impressive to see, and I think it's excellent.
Thank you, Mr.
Further
Chair.
questions or comments? Go ahead, John.
I'll pass this to Shannon.
Thank you, John. At the last meeting in July, staff brought forward our intention to develop a social media policy. We feel it's important given how mainstream and what a significant tool social media is. So we have since drafted that. It includes such things as standards, security and confidentiality, expectations, conduct, and employee engagement. So we do have a report later on in this meeting, so I'd be happy to take questions at that time.
Thank you very much. Anything further?
Carry on,
Shannon?
Okay, and then just moving forward to our 75th anniversary next year. Again, as mentioned at the last meeting, we are looking forward to drafting a work plan. So that has been drafted, and again, we'll see that later on in this meeting as a full report. And part of that work plan is to develop a 75th logo design. We have a signature event, which is the Take a Hike 75-kilometer challenge. And we have new and rebranded events for the 75th, as well as an open house and eco education day planned. And yeah, again, I'd be happy to take questions once we get to that point in the meeting.
Thank you. Any questions now?
Oh,
Okay, Kelsey.
This is just an update on our youth fish camp. I will bring a report to you a little bit later on, so I can answer any questions then. But 5 camps were completed in July and August with 80 youth participating. These are just a few of our photos from the 5 camps. Quite a few fish were caught this year despite the hot and sunny weather that we had at most of our camps.
Seeing no questions going on. Shannon?
Thank you. So last week we issued a level 1 low water advisory. It was reinstated. So the low water team met last week to vote to reinstate this due to lack of rainfall throughout the month of August. It's anticipated the team will meet again in the next couple of weeks just to recalculate and see where things are at. And there is the possibility of declaring level 2 low water for some sub-watersheds. I will be bringing a report to you later on in the meeting, and I'll be happy to take any questions at that point.
And just a comment as well, it was noted at the low water meeting that the rainfall is so sporadic and around the area. Some areas get nothing, and a mile or two away it rains like heck. So that was noted by all of the people that were at that meeting. Shannon again?
Yes, hello. So consistent with analysis from 2020, as well as direction from our last committee meeting, the 2021 Friends of SNC Golf Tournament has been postponed. And from that direction from the last committee meeting as well, a proposed alternative has been implemented, the fall fundraising event virtual wood auction. So a report has been included on the main committee agenda for discussion, so we'll be happy to discuss it further later on. But for a few details on the proposed fundraising event, the Boisé Est and SDNG Woodlot Association annual wood auction and wood forest fair has been cancelled once again in 2021. So SNC aims to work with these partners to host up to 100 locally donated woodworking pieces to be sold on the same platform that we used last year in the Art for Trees auction, 32auctions.com, in support, once again, of tree planting programs. So this online event we aim to hold in October 2021.
And I think that sounds excellent. Are there any questions of Shannon? Continue on.
Okay, and once again, just from discussions from our last committee meeting, as well as analysis and rationale performed in 2020, the annual SNC bus tour has been postponed just due to the ongoing pandemic, and a proposed alternative is an outreach event in the form of a virtual town hall. So the tentative date for this event would be the end of the first week of October, and a report on this has been included in the main committee agenda for discussion. So this event would showcase SNC's programs, services, conservation areas, and past and current project sites in a similar fashion to the bus tour, but in a virtual format. And there would be segments from SNC team leads, SNC General Manager Angela Coleman, and SNC Board Chair George Daouz. So again, this report is included in the main committee agenda for discussion. So I'd be happy to discuss further at that point.
Continuing on, Kelsey.
So just some upcoming community events. Yesterday there was an OPG site tour that Michelle and Rhonda led a few representatives from OPG on. There is an SD&G Library Story Walk coming up this weekend at the Robert Graham Conservation Area on the Saturday and Sunday. The Ontario Heritage Trust site tour is coming up on the 21st of September. We will be at the Metcalfe Fair the weekend of October 1st to October the 3rd. Remembering the Children at the Healing Place in Edwardsburg Cardinal is on October the 14th. We have a Tweed project announcement and site tour coming in up at the end of October on the 23rd, and the River Symposium is on October the 27th.
This is also a good reminder for committee members. This list obviously isn't exhaustive, but is some of the events that we plan to support and participate at over the next few months. So if anything comes to mind, either during this meeting or afterwards, where our attendance might be welcome or some support might go a long way to helping the event succeed, feel free to connect with staff and we can do our best to support things going on in the area. I see a question from Tom.
Tom?
What's the Ontario Heritage Trust site tour all about and where is that happening?
There are several properties that we own through conservation easements or agreements with Ontario Heritage Trust, some of our former Domtar properties. So we have representatives from OHT coming out to audit some of our operations on those forests to make sure that we have been in compliant with our agreement with them to manage some of those sites. Some of those sites required that no hunting take place, that sustainable forest management not take place or with permission. So a few different things to look for in terms of land management. We also have two properties we are hoping to do some selective harvesting in to remove ash trees, which does require approval from OHT. So we're going to be discussing that with them during their site tour of some of their properties.
Supplementary, Tom?
This is not a public event.
No, that one is not.
Thanks.
Welcome.
John, if people go to the calendar of South Nation, will all of these items be noted on it?
Excellent comment. And yes, Chair Bell, all of these events are posted on our events calendar. That's the main calendar on the main page of our website.
And thank you very much to staff for the various comments they've given and the updates they've given. And we will be discussing many of these items as we go through the agenda. John, is there anything else you have at this stage before we move on to new business?
Nope, we're good to move on, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Item 6A, update social media and website. Shannon. I ticked it, but I didn't deal with it. We're looking for a motion of approval of the minutes that are listed in your agenda. And this was the outside event, I think. So that was excellently done. Motion to approve. I see D, help me. Who's D?
Oh, apologies. I see Doug and seconded by Charles.
Okay, good. That's what I needed. Is there any further discussion? Any objection? Approved. Now I can move on to 6A, update social media and website. Shannon.
Yes, thank you. So the report has been included, which you can take a look at any time, but we have a few slides to update on our social media and website analytics that we'd like to go through. So this slide is focusing on our campaigns as a whole throughout the period of June to August. And specifically, it's looking at our top performing Facebook and Instagram post of the period, which for both platforms was one of our hashtag Wildlife Wednesdays posts on a black bear sighting in the area. And this was especially notable just because this was an audience generated photo. So it was provided by a member of the public. And content generated by the public gives people an even greater sense of engagement with our organization, as it shows that we care to highlight that type of content. So I believe it'll be a good strategy in the future to do more. And moving on, just a brief update on our Twitter posts. So our top posts were on the Berwick Storybook, the hashtag Trail Tuesdays Robert Graham post, 2020 throwback post on First Nations reconciliation and climate change planting opening ceremonies, and a fish camp post as well, all of which had some nice smiling faces or beautiful nature showcased. And in terms of social media analytics, we've just done a brief look at some of the audience data. And one thing that would be great to note is just that our audience on Instagram and Facebook is roughly 2/3 female, 1/3 male on both platforms. So this is good information to have when crafting a post, as it has been found in numerous studies that while both women and men use social media to influence travel decisions, women tend to be influenced significantly more by images and videos, which will be key when advertising SNC's properties to include great images and videos showcasing them to encourage our particular audience to visit. And so moving on to a brief update on our website analytics. So I have done a look at our June to August 2021 period versus our June to August 2020 period. And you will note probably a lot of red. So that doesn't always mean like negative. So we've definitely had a decrease in viewers, visitors to our site in terms of quantity. But I thought it was notable to mention that the quality of these visits has improved. So sessions are down from this period, but the quality has improved. So users are coming to the website more frequently. They're visiting more pages when they're on our website. They're staying on our pages longer, and they are leaving the site less quickly. So it can be inferred that updates to the website that have occurred within the past year to encourage more internal traffic on our website, such as adding links to pages and landing pages to encourage someone to kind of move through from page to page on our website, is what's causing these numbers to improve. So I think that even though it looks negative, it's actually quite a positive. And yes, thank you.
And I will note, Mr. Chair, that agenda package is on page 7 through to 9 and does include additional stats in terms of those highest used web pages and how many actual visitors to the web page we've seen within the different months of the year compared to last year. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Are there any questions on the report, the oral part, then the part you saw on the screen, and pages 7 to 9? Seeing none, I'm looking for a mover and a seconder. Moved by Tom, seconded by Murray. Further questions? Then the Communications Committee receive and file the social media and website update has been duly moved and seconded. Objections? Seeing none, it's approved. Thank you very much for the explanations and the detail. 6B, request for approval, SNC Social Policy Media. Shannon.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. As mentioned, we are looking to provide a guiding policy for social media. We know that social media is useful to get our messages out, and it's you know, a lot of people rely on social media to get their information. So with respect to that, we know that a policy will help ensure appropriate use and management of social media, and it will also improve effectiveness, efficiency, timeliness, and transparency for our communications team. So the policy takes a look at a few different things, including, I'm just going to bring it up here quickly. It takes a look at protocols, crisis communication planning, compliance with applicable laws such as security and confidentiality, and also employee engagement and use of social media platforms. So it is quite comprehensive, and I'd be happy to take any questions on it.
And perhaps, Mr.
Charles?
Chair, we can take a mover and seconder before we take questions.
Yes, we probably should. So looking for, the recommendation is that the Communications Committee receive and file the draft SNC social media policy for discussion purposes. Further, that the committee directs staff to present an updated policy directly to the Board of Directors for approval following legal review. Looking for a mover and a seconder. Moved by Tom, seconded by?
I see Doug.
Doug, thank you very much. Questions, comments?
And
Did
I'll
you
note,
have
Mr.
a-
Chair, the report can be found on pages 10 to 11, and we've actually included the draft policy for discussion from pages 12 to 15 of the agenda package.
Thank you. Charles has a question.
Yeah, I was just one comment on the privacy side or confidentiality side of things in section 3. I would have thought there would be a note that SNC would not gather information that's actually not required for their the purposes of conducting SNC business. Some sort of a note with that. And then realizing that it is social media policy, social media, and people put things on that are not necessarily required, and that another organization would be prohibited from gathering. Still, is it necessary to mention that maybe we should delete or at least anonymize some of that information so that we don't find ourselves later on invading somebody's privacy?
Certainly. Thank you, Charles, for the question. I think it's a good one. And I think the intent of this part is to suggest it, or to support exactly what you're suggesting. We want to make sure that when people provide us with information online, on social media, that they know that it's protected or not stored or destroyed. So I think we can probably take a closer look at this to see if we can make it more clear. Again, the intent of the policy is, not necessarily, for example, if we're collecting names for a newsletter, we've got disclaimers there. That's very clear. We shouldn't have any issues with that sort of collection of information. But when someone sends you a message on Facebook, for example, and says, I live here, here's my phone number, here's my credit card number, can you charge this or whatever? We want to make it very clear that that's not the type of information that we're collecting.
Yeah, what I was thinking of was somebody would like, more accessible access to a conservation area, and then would give you some medical information. This is why I would require that, or would prefer to have more accessible conservation area, and what could be done to do that. Well, the medical information, of course, is not something that you would want to retain or necessarily have into the public view for the long term.
Sorry, I just paused myself for a second there, Charles. I was listening. Chair Bill, actually, the power just went out in his house, so he just gave me a quick call to let me know.
Okay.
So you can see that his face is frozen right now. So with the committee's permission, I'll lead us through this report until our chair can rejoin us.
Okay.
But with respect to your question, I think we could clarify that. I think there's merit in that, Charles, and we can always put that question to our legal counsel to see if they have any suggestions to consider. Thank you. Good question, though, and this is the type of feedback we are looking for. Are there any other questions or comments from committee members on this report? Well, seeing none, Charles, you had a good one, so we thank you for that. Obviously, if members have comments that they'd like us to consider after the meeting, feel free to shoot us a message and we'll take a look at them. Again, the intent of this report is to present it for discussion. We are very seriously about considering this policy, and we do think that it will help improve the user experience for those that use our social media platform. So we don't know exactly when we would aim to bring that back to the board, but following this meeting, we will engage with our legal counsel to solicit some feedback and see what we can do to refine this and bring it to our board later this year. So this is moved and seconded. Seeing no further discussion, is there anyone in opposition to this report? Seeing none, the motion is moved and carried. Thank you, Shannon Gutowski. Next report, agenda item 6C, found on pages 16 to 17, update on low water response program communication. Can I get a mover and a seconder for this report? I see Charles moved, thank you, and Byron seconded, thank you. Shannon Gutowski.
All right, thank you, John. So yes, as mentioned earlier, we are in a low water, level 1 low water as of last Thursday. So part of our communications team supports our flood forecasting and warning and low water messaging. So part of our communications include social media. So, of course, putting this out to the public to make them aware of what the current status is. We've issued 4 memos to our municipal municipal members, including council and CAOs. We've also issued 4 press releases with respect to our low water messaging this year. Targeted social media campaigns, which promote limited use of non-essential water conservation, and tips for water conservation. This is obviously something that our local media pick up. So we've been included in the Farmers Forum, COA News, Nation Valley News, and the Review. Quite frequently, every time we do put out a statement, it is picked up by local media. We put low water notices on our digital screen, our digital sign just outside of the office, as well as signs on our welcome to the South Nation watershed at each of our entrance points into the watershed, and also the distribution of water conservation posters as well.
Thank you, Shannon. Those stats are included on page 17 of your agenda package. Any questions for Shannon? Charles, go ahead.
Yeah, just one question. Low water is in respect of what would be expected at this time of year. Am I correct?
That is correct. And the 2 factors that are looked at are precipitation, average historical precipitation, and average historical stream flows. And notably, obviously, last few years, we've definitely seen these numbers trending to below average. And especially this year and last, we are seeing numbers very low and streams very dry. Obviously, the team lifted that declaration in August because we were able to receive record high rainfall in July that did recharge many of our rivers and streams, but that certainly is not the case now at this time. And I think final comment on this too, this is something that obviously we talk to people a lot about on social media. And we do encourage anyone who's experiencing unusual water-related problems to give us a shout. Most of the comments that we do receive are in regards with respect to dry wells or how to manage a dry well. So that's the most commonly received question. Any additional questions from committee members? Seeing none, we do have this moved and seconded. Is there any opposition to this report? Then the recommendation is that the Communications Committee receive and file the communications updates to the low water response programs. Carried. Thank you. Next report, agenda item 6D on pages 18 to 19 of your agenda package, an update on our 2021 Youth Fish Camp program. The recommendation is that the Communications Committee receive and file the 2021 Youth Fish Camp report, and further that the committee directs staff to review the user fees in March 2022 to consider hosting additional camps next year should resources and funding permit. Can we receive a mover and a seconder for this report before we receive an update from Kelsey? Moved by Doug, seconded by Charles. Thank you. Kelsey, go ahead.
All right, so this is just an update and a few stats from this year's fish camps. So we did host 5 separate fish camps at 3 of our conservation areas. So High Falls in Castleman, Jessop's Falls in Plantagenet, and Cassbridge in Winchester. So each camp was 2 days and it ran from 9 until 3 on both of those days. And throughout the 5 camps, it was between 15 and 18 participants. So last year our camps were canceled due to the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic, but this year with some health protocols in place, we were able to go ahead. So for this year, our camps were instructed exclusively by SNC staff, we did have the someone from the water rangers come out on the first day of our first camp to demonstrate the use of our water quality testing kits that we use. And the second day of each camp, we were fortunate enough to have Bruce Clark from the Ottawa Fly Fishers Association to come out and give a demonstration and a presentation on fly fishing. Unfortunately, this year, participants were not able to make their own fly ties, but hopefully next year we can get back to that, as that is one of their favorite parts of the camps. So this year, a little bit differently, is participants were asked to bring their own lunches instead of SNC providing lunch for everyone, but we did offer snacks and drinks and waters for throughout the day. So this did have some cost savings compared to other years where lunch was purchased. As well as this year, rods were only provided to those youth who didn't have their own fishing rod, instead of giving one to every participant. So there you'll see a chart with some of our stats from this year, with the approximate staff time, our total revenue, our expenses, and then the net proceeds and staff recovery. So the participant fee again this year was $40, which helped to offset some of the costs of our camps and assists in deterring any last minute cancellations. This year, most of our camps were sold out within the first couple of days that it was posted online. And differently this year is we had a form that parents or guardians had to fill out in order to sign up their youth. And then based on requests received from municipal partners and interested residents, staff recommend hosting additional camps in summer of 2022 and recommend increasing camp capacity from 15 to 20 participants in accordance with any guidelines that might be in effect next summer. So if the committee agrees and SNC plans to deliver more than 5 camps next year, staff do recommend reviewing the $40 user fee to ensure the program can be delivered with no net cost. Staff also recommend considering an application which would allow reduced rates for participants to address any financial barriers for low-income families.
Thank you, Kelsey. This update again, that chart was on page 18 of your agenda package and the recommendation from staff on page 19. This is a very popular program that we've delivered for a number of years. We were very sad to not have been able to deliver it last year. As with most years, this program sells out incredibly fast. All of the camps, with the exception of Justice Falls, sold out within 2 days. We did have waiting lists, so we do know there's lots of demand and interest in this camp. And so we want to make sure if we're able to deliver it next year, that we do proceed in a way that is going to not cost the authority any money. So we would suggest that we do review that fee with the committee in March, should the committee be supportive of that. And should we plan to host additional camps, it will be important to look at those fees, make sure that we do have a net cost of 0 on these camps. And as discussed previously, the intent of this program too is to provide families with safe and reasonable opportunities for summer camps. So we do feel like there is a need to consider a process where we might be able to support low-income families with financial barriers to have access to this camp, should we adjust the fees. So we are looking for your comments and your questions on this approach. Again, looking for those comments to inform a committee report in March. So I see Tom, then Doug, and then Charles. Tom first.
I don't have the paperwork in front of me, and I don't know if this number is in the paperwork. What does it cost us now to operate the fish camps?
Great question. Thank you, Tom. The biggest cost is obviously staff time, or the support that goes into that program. We estimated this year with the delivery of 10 camp days, the amount of staff hours was 240. The cost SNC, when looking at that cost, there's a variety of factors. When the program is supported by summer students or volunteers, obviously the cost is lower. If we do have grants that are supporting the hiring of our summer students, or grants that support this program, it reduces the cost as well. So the two kind of cost pieces that Kelsey identified in the report were the fishing rods, the tackle, and the food, both of which we spent less than we traditionally would have spent delivering these camps. So that's one factor, but it's staff time that we need to make sure we're revenue neutral on when we deliver educational programming.
So the $40 doesn't cover it right now.
No.
What would cover it?
We anticipate a small increase might help us break even on the
45?
condition, exactly, on the condition that we're able to receive grants for our summer students to support the delivery of this program. So there's a few variables, but in the past, that's the approach that's worked really well. If we have summer students that are paid 50 or 75% by government funds, it really reduces the financial burden on SNC to be able to deliver the program. And we would only be looking for a net zero. We're not looking to make any money on these programs.
Yeah. Okay, thanks, John.
For sure, thank you. I think Doug next and then Charles.
Thank you, Mr. Interim Chair. This is an excellent program, probably one of the best that South Nation offers. I just had a question. Are there locations within the city of Ottawa where the camp, this fish camp could be held, or are there some that I'm not aware of that are within the city of Ottawa?
Great question. There are some similar camps that are delivered in the city of Ottawa, not by our Conservation Authority partners, but by several other agencies. Parks Canada has done it in the past, and the province previously used to deliver the Learn to Fish program within the city. However, they have not delivered it during the pandemic, so it is something that we could look into, Doug, for you to see if there's a suitable site where we could deliver this. With this discussion too, part of the discussion is deciding where the camp should be hosted moving forward. Obviously, we have a request from our Leeds and Grenville partners to host one somewhere in our southern portion of our jurisdiction, preferably at the Cardinal Dock, a place that we, a property that we help spruce up by installing that dock, for example. So we're definitely looking to decide what sites might work best for the people in our communities for next year.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. And I know, Charles, you put your hand down, but if you have a question, go ahead.
Question answered. Thank you.
Thank you. Any additional comments or questions from committee members? Seeing none, the recommendation is that the Communications Committee receive and file the 2021 Youth Fish Camp report, and further that the committee directs staff to review the user fees in March 2022 and consider hosting additional camps in 2022 should resources and funding permit. We have a mover and a seconder, so I'm looking for anyone in opposition to this report. Seeing none, all in favor? I see nods. Thank you. Motion carried. Before we proceed, I should note that Chair Bill still does not have his power restored. So I'm looking for a bit of a committee endorsement if you'd like me to continue chairing the meeting, or if one of you are interested in taking over the helm.
Keep going, John.
Okay, I'm seeing some thumbs up, so I'll take that as an endorsement. Unofficially, I'll proceed as interim chair until, oh, Doug's giving me a thumbs down. I'll proceed as interim chair until Bill is able to rejoin us. Next report, agenda item 6E, pages 20 to 23 of your agenda package. This is a request for approval for the postponement of our annual golf tournament and the launch of a fall fundraising initiative, the online wood auction. The recommendation that I'm looking for a mover and seconder on is that the Communications Committee approve the cancellation of SNC's annual Friends of SNC golf tournament, and further that the committee directs staff to organize an online fundraising wood auction in partnership with Boise and the SCG Woodlot Association in fall 2021 to support community tree planting initiatives next year. Moved by Tom, looking for a seconder. Murray, thank you. Shannon Murray.
Thank you, John. So thank you. As previously mentioned, Boise Est and the SDNG Woodlot Association have been unable to organize their annual Wood and Forest Fair. So with the support of both of these partners, SNC aims to host an online auction showcasing locally crafted woodwares to provide a place for regular vendors and local artists to showcase their work and raise money to support tree planting initiatives in the region. So this wood auction would take place throughout the month of October. It will take place on the same platform, 32auctions.com, that the Art for Trees auction took place on last year. And one small change to the event this year is that there will be a small cost associated with using the platform this year, just because we want to host up to 100 items this year, and that will cost roughly $38. So the proposed title for the event is South Nation Creations Online Wood Auction, and we welcome your feedback on the event.
Thank you, Shannon. I'll also draw your attention to your committee package, page 22. We have gone ahead and drafted an FAQ for this event, similar to the approach we took last year with our Art for Trees auction. So we have included some of our frequently asked questions that would support this. And again, the model is based off the success that we had last year, where we were able to secure $7,000 through our art campaign to support our tree planting initiatives in the spring. So we're hoping that with the support of our partners and targeting this wood auction to local woodwares, that we'll be able to receive similar support in October. So questions, I'll go to Tom first. Tom, you'll need to go ahead and mute yourself. I should remind committee members, if there's feedback, I've just gone ahead and been muting you, so you do need to unmute yourself when you speak.
Mine is just a comment. I wanted to say what a great idea this is, a great follow-up to last year's auction, and such an appropriate thing for a conservation authority to be involved in. So yeah, I just want to say I love this idea. Thanks.
Thank you, Tom. We appreciate that. And we do agree. We think it's a good fit. Even last year, the number of interested local artisans that wanted to donate woodworking piece, charcuterie boards, small tables, we definitely think that there's interest out there. And we think it would be nice to give our vendors a place to showcase their work as well. So I think that's another positive of this online promotion. Question from Jerry Couts.
Yes, I think this is a great idea as well. I do have a comment on the brochure. When I first saw it, I was misled. I was thinking that you were trying to sell firewood. Perhaps it should say South Nation Wood Creations Online Auction. Just a suggestion. I'm not in that business.
It's a good one, Jerry. I'm seeing some nods from staff as well. Anyone else have any comments on that? Obviously, this is for discussion purposes. Guys are looking for your feedback. Well, staff can take a look at it, Jerry. We can see what other abbreviations might work well as well. We did go through an extensive list to land on this. I hear some staff laughing at me now. But certainly, I think that's an easy edit that might even work well in our favor. Byron, go ahead.
I don't have the package in front of me, John, and forgive me if I'm going to ask something that's already in the package, but how are you going to target people to donate? Like, do you have a list of names that you're working with, or how does that work?
Yeah, great question. Two-pronged approach. Obviously, last year, most of our social media advertisement worked in securing sponsors. We also relied on committee members and staff to help ask their friends and their neighbors who they know might be interested in sponsoring. But as you suggested, we do have a list from our past wood auctions for those that have donated work or sold work at the auctions. And we do have additional lists with Boise-S and the SDG Woodlot Association that we're hoping to use. So we're hoping to use that contact list with permission to reach out to some of the vendors that we know exist in the region. And we're also hoping that both partners, Boise-S and the Woodlot Association, send a bulletin out to their members as well to help promote the event.
Are you looking for committee members to submit wood creations as well?
I'm looking to a few of you that I know are busy in this industry. And of course, if you're interested in making a donation, we'd be happy to accept it. And I think we'd all agree it would go to a good cause.
Okay.
Thank you. A question from Tom.
I don't recall last year if the event was bilingual. Is this a fully bilingual event?
Good question. Because it is online, yes, Tom, it's easy to make bilingual. We do have an English and French webpage that promote the event, and we'll go as far as making sure that our social media campaigns are bilingual as well to support this, since it is basically entirely going to be online.
Okay, thanks.
Our FAQ packages and the package we prepare for our donors is also bilingual. You will just see the English version in your agenda package on page 22 though. Additional comments, questions? Seeing none, the recommendation again is that the Communications Committee approve the cancellation of SNC's annual Friends of SNC golf tournament, and further that the committee directs staff to organize an online fundraising wood auction in partnership with Boisier and the STG Woodlot Association in fall 2021 to support community tree planting initiatives. It's been moved and seconded. Is there any opposition to this report? Seeing none, all in favor? Thank you, carried. Next report, agenda item 6F, pages 24 to 25 of your agenda package. This is a request for approval for a virtual town hall replacement of the annual tour. The recommendation that I'm looking for a mover and seconder on is that the Communications Committee approve the cancellation of SNC's annual bus tour, and further that the committee directs staff to host an alternative outreach event in the form of a virtual town hall in fall 2021 to educate the public on SNC programs, services, conservation areas, and past and current projects. Again, looking for a mover and seconder. Moved by Charles, seconded by Jerry Kautz. Shannon Murray, go ahead with your presentation.
Thank you. So as mentioned, for 2021, staff proposed an educational event in the form of this virtual town hall, which will be an alternative to the bus tour in showcasing SNC's programs, services, conservation areas, and past and current project sites, to be held tentatively at the end of the first week of October 2021. So this virtual town hall will present updates on 2021 milestones, including but not limited to environmental planning reviews, floodplain mapping, the Natural Heritage Systems Project, education programs including fish camps, record visitations at conservation areas, tree planting programs, the healing place, and more. Speakers will also acknowledge and reflect on SNC's 75th anniversary in 2022. So staff will be leading these presentations and streaming the virtual town hall with supporting presentations from SNC's leadership team members, including SNC General Manager Angela Coleman and SNC Board Chair George Rose. So any questions and comments?
Thank you, Shannon. I see Tom, and I also see a hand raised by Jerry. Tom first.
I find it's unfortunate that we have to replace such a great outdoor event with a virtual event. I know what's leading to it. I know the situation. But is there not a way we could do something live and maybe outdoors to replace the bus tour, maybe at SNC headquarters in Finch, maybe under a canopy or something, at the end of October? I know there's weather considerations. It's supposed to be a nice fall. Maybe have some presentations made outside under a tent as described, the same presentations more or less. But instead of on the computer, could we not possibly do it live?
Yeah, great comments, Tom. Thank you. And something that we have discussed, especially as staff, we definitely see the merit in being able to physically bring people together when it's safe and possible. And certainly the bus tour and other events have really helped showcase the work that we do. It also has helped, acknowledge the volunteers and the supporters that we have that help make the work that we do such a success. So if there was a way or is a way to make something in person or have an in-person component, we're definitely supportive of that approach. but it is something that we're unsure about for the first week of October. I will note that in our work plan for the 75th anniversary, we are suggesting an event that you've described, basically at the office, bringing people together, showcasing some of this work, and also including a component where we could acknowledge some of the volunteers that have done a lot of work throughout the pandemic to support the environment. So I'm interested in hearing if there are thoughts from other committee members on an in-person option for this town hall, or if there is merit in maybe hosting an additional event where we could bring some of the people in our network together. I don't know, Tom, if you have a follow-up first before we take questions from other members.
John, if I can jump in to say that I now have hydro back and I just got in.
Welcome back, Mr. Chair. Happy to have you.
Where are we, please?
We are on agenda item 6F, pages 24 and 25 of the agenda package.
I apologize for that. That has never happened to me before during a meeting.
Well, we're happy to have you back. I will note someone took control of my screen and turned off my PowerPoint. I'm not sure if that was intentional, but I'm just going to go ahead and get that back up. And maybe, Tom, if you had a follow-up, and if not, we can go to Doug next. Okay,
Tom is okay.
Yeah, go ahead, Doug.
As much as I would agree with Tom's suggestion, I think it's awkward to have in person at this time, and people still don't feel comfortable, or a number of people still don't feel comfortable. So I think that for this year, that unfortunately this might be the way to go. That's my thought.
Thank you. Further comments?
Mr. Chairman, it's Murray Inch. I just have a question about the date, the proposed date, which is listed as the first week in October. That's very close to Thanksgiving. Is there any possibility we should move it a bit so we attract a better potential audience?
Thank you. I can comment on that, Mr. Chair. And it's a good question, Murray. Also something that we've debated a little bit as staff. And some of our motivators, obviously Thanksgiving. We wanted to keep it away from the holiday, but have it close enough to Thanksgiving that the tone and the message is still positive. We also wanted to keep it in October so that we could hopefully showcase the online wood auction at the same time and use this event as a potential launching pad for the month-long fundraiser. We also wanted to keep it at least 2 weeks plus away from the close of the federal election. We know the tone in terms of public perspective can be challenging sometimes around a federal election, and so we thought that it would be best to stay far enough away from the election, but close enough to Thanksgiving, but also, use the event to showcase our auction. So we didn't pick a definitive date because we're actually not sure yet what date might work best, but we are open to comments and suggestions. And I don't know if you have a follow-up on that, Murray, if you think maybe closer or further away from Thanksgiving might be a better fit.
My concern was just that Thanksgiving, people are very busy with their own family matters, and it's probably worth considering whether a little further away would be better.
Absolutely. Something else we're hoping to do, obviously the event would be recorded, and as long as everything works out as planned or as expected, we could hopefully clip portions of that town hall and maybe reserve them out on social media throughout the month as well, if the content works out like that. But we can take a closer look at the date, and I think through you, Mr. Chair, if we can hear other committee members' thoughts on the date as well.
Looking for other comments?
I see Doug and then Charles and then Jerry.
Okay, Doug first.
Sorry, I'm finished. My apologies.
Charles, thanks, Doug.
Yeah, just it's more of a general comment, but it comes out of the cancellation of the bus tour. Has the Eastern Ontario Health Unit or Ottawa Public Health been providing any guidance, well, more forecast of how we can see things changing in the near future? And that goes everywhere. Our own in-person meetings, through to bus tours, to any event that we may have more than 2 people or a family together.
Yeah, great comments, Charles. We do continue to meet with the Eastern Ontario Health Unit every Thursday of every week. We've done so throughout the entire pandemic. Dr. Paul hosts an agency meeting for, agencies like ours, municipalities, libraries, big businesses to come together and hear those sorts of updates and outlooks. They do change often, frequently. And so we do our best to make sure that our forecast is taking into account those considerations. And, to be honest, there are going to be continued challenges with hosting public events, and some of the direction that's coming out from the federal level around vaccinations and how we implement those sorts of policies with our public events is going to be a challenge that we're hoping to work through this fall. So it's not to say we're not interested in hosting a public event, especially with the case of the Remembering the Children ceremony that we're hoping to host at the Healing Place. Where possible, we want to try and make these sorts of things happen. But certainly there are challenges around vaccination, proof of vaccination, and amounts. And in terms of guidance around bus tours, certainly the health units haven't banned them, but they have provided some stringent guidelines on how it could proceed. And I think the comments made by committee member Doug are part of the reason why we as staff want to proceed with the most cautious approach possible. We want to make sure that people feel comfortable to participate in whatever event that we host.
Yeah, I was the ceremony at the Healing Place is a typical example where we can expect to gather children, which is currently there's no plan to vaccinate children. So it's obviously a problem that we have overall. And unless Dr. Paul has given us something that I haven't read in the news, I don't see any near term or even medium term plan to vaccinate under 12s. So this is going to be a continuing problem for the foreseeable future, in my view. And as I say, unless you've seen something from Eastern Ontario Health Unit, that's just not in the news at the moment.
Yeah, that's correct.
And if I might add, it's more than just Dr. Paul. They're being very cautious, as is the government. But people I know in my area are very cautious personally about being out and about and getting involved in things. And we've canceled 2 major events in our area that were planned for outdoors, but could have had some indoor part of it because of the concern of individuals. I have a G. Is that Jerry?
Yeah, maybe me.
Yeah,
Jerry Coates.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Jerry, go ahead.
Yes, my comment was about the bus tour cancellation. I guess the critical COVID-related issue is the bus itself, people on the bus.
Yeah.
Have you considered driving to locations and having the open air meetings like we did at the Jessops Falls committee meeting?
Thank you. And yes, we have considered that. To note also, there are other public agencies that continue to host bus tours, and they do use coach buses and require mandatory masking. And they've proceeded with that approach. It's not an approach that we would recommend as staff. And again, citing the personal feelings and expectations around people, we want to make sure that if we're going to host something, that everyone is going to feel comfortable and it is going to be safe. With respect to a car tour, our biggest constraint when we talked about this as staff was available parking at some of these project sites.
Oh, yeah.
And so not to say it's not possible, but definitely not in the same format that we would have traditionally done.
Yep.
If I can add as well, Thank you. If I can add as well, whenever you have cars going, you extend the length of the time because no matter how well you plan it, the car sort of stretch out, and getting in and moving on is a real task.
Okay.
Are there
thank you.
further comments? Jerry, supplementary?
No. I'm just saying thank you. I understand.
Yeah. Are there other comments? Seeing none, I've heard some comments that suggest reconsideration. I've also heard some that say in the matter of safety and the matter of that the recommendation to cancel may be the best one. So is there further comments before I read the recommendation? Look for a mover and second. Have we a mover and seconder, Mr. Chair?
Yes, we do indeed.
Okay, then is there any further comment? The Communications Committee approved the cancellation of SNC's annual bus tour. Further that, the committee directed staff to host an alternative outreach event in the form of a virtual town hall in the fall of 21 to educate the public on SNC programs, services, conservation areas, past and current projects. And what I also heard in the discussion was don't have it too close to Thanksgiving. And I take from that if it's going to be before Thanksgiving, it would be the Monday or Tuesday, the 4th or 5th. If it's going to be after, it would probably be the following week. Is there any other comment on that before I ask? And who moved and seconded it, by the way, John?
Kelsey, can you answer that question?
Yeah, so it was moved by Charles and seconded by Jerry.
Further questions, comments? And you're accepting that if it's virtual, it would either be the Monday, Tuesday, 4th or 5th, or else the following week after Thanksgiving. Are we sort of agreed that that's a good direction? Hearing no other comments, is there any? It's been duly moved and seconded. So, any objections? I'm watching. I see no hands. So approved. And John, that means we'll leave it to you to pick the date based on the information we have that would meet best for, or would suit everyone best for a virtual meeting. Is that correct?
That's correct. And we'll provide an update by email as well, just in case there is any additional feedback as the planning moves ahead.
Okay, thank you very much. Then we're moving to 6G. Am I correct, John?
That's correct, Mr. Chair. I should note that we have been making good progress through our agenda, and if you're interested or the committee is interested, this might be a good time to pause for a washroom break if there's a need.
Do you wish a 3-minute break or negative? I see no signals for a break. So if anyone needs to break, just quickly do it on your own, I guess. And we're going on with 6G. Request for approval. SNC 75th anniversary logo design. Shannon. Oh, sorry. Did I see a question? No. Okay, Shannon.
Okay, thank you, Chair. As discussed at the last meeting, we are looking to come up with the 75th commemorative logo for our 75th anniversary. So essentially, an anniversary logo really showcases our success and good work while instilling a strong corporate message and a strong image of trust and credibility. So we have had discussions with TD Graham. They are a local company. We've worked with them in the past. They designed our 70th logo. So we feel it's a good fit. They're aware of our work and we've worked well together in the past. So we have had conversations with them to create a 75th logo. We are looking at a design. We will be looking at a design concept. We haven't seen anything yet. We are working towards that goal, and that's something we would look forward to bringing to you at our next meeting.
Questions or comments?
Mr. Chair, if we can take a mover and seconder.
So looking for, the recommendation is that the Communications Committee direct staff to work with graphic designers to create a new SNC logo for the 75th anniversary. This is page 26 on your agenda. Looking for a mover and a seconder. Moved by Jerry, seconded by Doug.
Nice.
Duly moved and seconded. Any discussion, questions, comments? Seeing none, it's already duly moved and seconded and read to you. Any objections? Seeing none, approved. Moving on to item H. This is Shannon again, and it would be on page 27 of your package. Shannon?
Okay, thank you, Chair. Again, at our last meeting, grateful for the opportunity to discuss options for the 75th anniversary as far as events and items that we want to highlight throughout the year. So we have established a draft work plan, which you'll see in the report. So we've taken into account the comments that we received at that meeting. So thank you very much for those. We are eager to implement those come January 1st. So looking forward to discussion on this, and happy to answer any questions and hear any comments.
So, Mr. Chair, I've just gone ahead and put that anniversary outline on the screen. This was an attachment to Shannon's report that she presented. And within that attachment, we have gone ahead and proposed a signature event or commemorative activity for each month during the year, similar to the approach we've done for previous 5-year anniversaries. You will note, as she suggested, most of these items are existing events that would be retailored to support the 75th anniversary, in addition to several fundraising initiatives that we think would be very successful to helping promote the work that we do, while also fundraising to support some of these programs. So that guide brings you through to page 31. And I don't know, Shannon, if you want to maybe point out some of those signature sponsorship events, as well as the 75K challenge and some additional details.
Sure, thank you. So again, the signature event we are looking at is the Take a Hike 75-kilometer challenge, which encourages users or watershed residents of all abilities to take part. So that includes the opportunity to snowshoe, to hike, to paddle. They can visit Mill Run Conservation Area and get their kayaks in the water. So it's just an opportunity to get out there, get active at their own pace. So we would really be looking forward to promoting that event throughout the year, which is great. Piggybacking on existing fishing derbies, for example, ice fishing derbies, as well as anything in the summer. We're also looking at Maple Madness in March. Of course, tree planting comes springtime. We're looking at engaging with schools perhaps to bring that event along. Moving forward into the summer, we're looking at a couple signature events that is kind of a feel-good community event, puts us on the map, and also helps out local businesses, which obviously have been hard hit due to COVID. So that includes a signature beer launch, Taste the Nation. So Taste the Nation, for example, a restaurant would have a signature dish with proceeds coming back to South Nation, which we think would be a great idea. Of course, the fish camps, as we've talked about earlier in this meeting, we could have some different avenues and different locations, and perhaps extended camps for that as well for next year, which would bode well for the 75th. We're also looking at bringing back the South Nation Conservation Golf Tournament, the open house, as we've talked about earlier, with an eco-education day to bring schools here and to have a nice event here at the office to bring people together, to have workshops, to have the opportunity for the public to speak with staff one-on-one, something that obviously hasn't happened in quite a while. We're looking at a guided hike, again, hopefully bringing the bus tour back next year, and in December having some staff and volunteer recognition as well. And all of this would be included in a handy guide. So will be a booklet of some sort, or a brochure that highlights all of the activities planned throughout the year, which of course we'll have once we have final board approval. We'll be busy getting that ready to go for January 1st.
Thank you very much, Shannon. We'll take a motion. I'll read the recommendation, and then we'll have a good discussion. Recommendation: the Communications Committee approve this SNC 75th anniversary work plan as presented. And I'm looking for a mover and a seconder. Moved by, I can't see the number, the plus threes.
Tim, Mr. Chair.
Tim moved and seconded by?
Doug.
Doug, thank you very much. Okay, duly moved and seconded. We're open to discussion, and there's a heck of a lot presented here. It looks very well thought out and put together. And the only since I'll start off with the questions: will the SNC bus tour for November be too late? And I don't know the answer to that. It's just a question. Go ahead. Other questions? Doug?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and it's a good outline of events. It says in January that snowshoe or other, those are winter events. Would there be something in the summer for, and perhaps I missed it, for biking or walking 75 kilometers? A similar.
Yeah, great question, Doug. The intent behind the 75K challenge is that it would incorporate all of those different uses. We certainly don't expect everyone to snowshoe 75K in January, but we hope that, you know, maybe people will do a combination of activities throughout the year. And so the intent of that program is it would last for the entire year of our anniversary.
It would be cumulative then.
Yes, so perhaps 10K snowshoe, 5K canoe kayak, maybe the rest all running, who knows.
So perhaps that maybe that item would be a little more clear, because I took it that it was just for sort of for a winter events for those. The other thing I didn't see mentioned in here, I know it's early in the day and perhaps I'm a little older, but I can't think of the term that we use where we're out painting fish at schools. And I would expect we'd be doing that, and that could be something, unless it's in there and I didn't see it, but that's something that could be listed as an event, and perhaps we could enhance it or expand it for the 75th anniversary.
Absolutely, great comment. So that's the Stream of Dream program that Doug is referring to. Yeah, and we didn't include it on that outline. Obviously, it's something that we care very dearly about. I think we launched it coincidentally in our 70th anniversary. So we are approaching 5 years delivering that program. And we would certainly, if we're able to proceed and deliver that program, if the school boards would allow that sort of activity, then absolutely, we will deliver it. And absolutely, it would be a 75 or 75th year focus.
Yeah, because that is a real, that's a very popular one, and it really, I think it expands the South Nation.
Absolutely, the brand and recognition in our communities, yes, for sure. And I think all of the schools that we still, again, have tentatively confirmed from pre-pandemic, we have 4 schools in Ottawa and 1 in Russell that are next on the distribution. So we are potentially looking to this fall. Again, we're waiting on advice from the school boards. They have said that outdoor field trips should be able to proceed, but in school, just not at this time. So that activity is still up in the air, but probably we will let you know in the coming months if we're able to proceed with it. And if there's a way to do it in 2022, we will certainly find a way to do that. And if I can provide just one extra comment, Mr. Chair, many of these activities where they are new or different would require that we come back to the committee with a report basically outlining how that activity would proceed. So you can expect a report on the 75K challenge with the poster, with the guide, with our expectations, so that we can get some feedback from committee members as well before we launch it.
Thanks, John, and thanks, Doug. I see, John, another hand, but I don't know who it is.
I see Tim.
Yeah, it's me.
Okay, go ahead.
I think this is a great schedule for the upcoming year, and I also think that it's really well thought out in terms of scalability. That it can be, if the pandemic recedes, that we can scale up the events a bit, add in some other more traditional celebrations, and if the pandemic worsens, that there's a lot of safe things that are in here, or ways that some of these events could be made more safe. And just to touch on schools, I hear lots about schools with my wife being an active teacher, my mother being an active teacher in Russell, and even my sister-in-law too, as well, an active teacher in Ontario too. So I can say that assuming schools are similar, like they are allowing field trips where they're outdoors and they're within walking distance of the school, but even then, when their children are playing outdoors at recess, they have cohorted groups outdoor. They don't have to wear masks outdoors, but they are in cohorted groups on the playground. So they're cohorted by classes. So they're still very, very contained, and there's still no, like, parents can't go inside the school, things like that. So there would definitely be probably concerns in general, I imagine, with us going and doing some of this indoors, but outdoors might be a possibility. But I know that in the past we would typically do it on an entire school basis, and I think that might be where some of the schools have some concerns with the current health unit's advice, trying to get all the kids at the school together. Where I know that school assemblies are technically permitted in Ontario, but I think that most schools and school boards have advised that they're going to not do assemblies like that. They're going to do like, you can have kids gather as a class, but not really as an entire school. So again, maybe that'll change in the coming months, or maybe it would change by spring. But that's my thoughts and perspectives on that. I just wanted to mention too that I especially like the idea of the South Nation beer, and also the Taste of the Nation part. I imagine that there will be more information on that later, of how we're going to do like a selection and things like that. So I don't have any questions at this point, but I just thought I'd point out that if a brewery in Castleman happened to pick it up and they were using the town water to do their brewery, that you could actually literally taste the nation, as Castleman, of course, draws its drinking water from the South Nation River. So that would be a literal taste of the nation.
Thanks, Tim. Doug, do you have an additional question or just your hand?
Sorry, I forgot to lower.
Okay, are there any further questions, comments, or suggestions? Then duly moved and read, moved and seconded. I think that it's really looking quite good, and I'm looking forward to hearing more information as we go along. So is there any other questions? Seeing none, are there any objections? Seeing none, approved. Moving on to number I, Kelsey. And that would be on, I think it would be on page 32 and 3
through 36, and then also recall that we've moved the request from the supplemental agenda, item 1A, into this report. So there's 3 grants that Kelsey will walk us through.
Thank you.
All right, so since our last meeting in July, we received 3 community environmental grant applications. Our first one is from the Russell Historical Society. Their event did happen this past Saturday. And they did pick up a banner to display at the event in hopes that they were successful in receiving the grant. Sorry, my computer is frozen.
And that's on page 32 of the agenda package. And they identified that funding from this grant would be used for the advertising, office supplies, and possibly some costs regarding the event. Do you want me to keep going, Kelsey, or is your computer?
No, I'm good now. Sorry. Okay. So our next application was from Camp Kegama. So they were looking to plant a native caliper-sized tree at the camp on Morrison Island, which is along the St. Lawrence River. So just to note that this camp location is outside of our jurisdiction.
But staff included it on the report because the request is from a member-paying municipality in South Stormont. So it is important to note that it is up to the committee to review that application and make a decision.
And then our final request is on our supplemental agenda that came from Eco East, which is an environmental organization within the Russell Township. And they're looking to plant a large caliper-sized tree at the municipal dog park that's located on Notre Dame Street between the villages of Russell and Embrun. And they have received permission from the Township of Russell to plant a tree on this property. So they're just looking for the funding to be used to purchasing a caliper-sized tree. And we will ask them, they were open to suggestions, so we will advise them to plant a native tree to the area when deciding on species.
Thank you, Kelsey. So, Mr. Chair, there's 3 requests on the agenda from the Russell and District Historical Society, from Camp Kagama, and from Eco East, and staff are looking for discussion and recommendations on those 3 applications. Mr. Chair, you're still muted, but I think if we can go ahead and grab a mover and seconder, we can.
I'll try it now. I'll read it first. The Communications Committee recommends the Board of Directors approval of the community environmental grants in the amount of $300 each to the Russell and District Historical Society, Camp Kagama, and the Eco East Russell large caliber tree request. I'm looking for a mover and a seconder. Moved by Tom,
No.
seconded by Tim. No?
No, I didn't want to move it, Mr. Chair. I wanted to get a little more detail on Camp Kagama, because that's being included and apparently it's outside of jurisdiction.
We'll take the movers and seconder, and then we'll have the discussion. So who's
Okay,
moving
we can
it?
do it that way? Okay.
Yep.
Tim moves. Who's seconding?
I had seen Byron. I saw you put your hand down though.
Charles'
I just
hand
want to
is.
ask a question, John.
Okay, we just need
So
a
we
mover
need
and
a
seconder
seconder.
before we can
Do we have a
discussion.
seconder?
I'll
Yes.
do it. I'll
Doug
do
is
it.
seconded. So now we're open to questions, and we have several for discussion. Before we have any questions, how much dollars is left in this account, John?
For sure, that's included on page 3 of the supplemental agenda package. We have $900 in review at this meeting, and if they were all to proceed, we would have $4,300 remaining in this fund to be dispersed at the November meeting.
Okay, thank you very much. Starting with Tom, and we have several questions. Tom, go ahead.
Sorry, Mr. Chair. Can you hear me?
Yes.
No, I wanted to know a little more about Camp Kagama. Where is it located exactly, and how come it is outside the jurisdiction? Where is it?
If I could answer that.
Maybe it's in the paperwork, and it's not. The paperwork's not in front of me.
I'd like to answer that if possible. So I had the same thought, and so I looked into it. It is so it's located very close to Upper Canada Village. It's on an island just southeast of the bird sanctuary. So you pass the bird sanctuary to get to it. So it's in terms of distance, it's about within 5 kilometers of our jurisdiction. So based on its proximity, and I do believe that we've given some past support to the bird sanctuary through our grant program too. So based on our leniency to that geographic boundary in the past, I support proceeding just as it's just outside of our jurisdiction, and we've given support to this area in the past.
Whose jurisdiction is it?
That's what I was going to ask. Is it South Stormont?
Yes, and it is within the Raisin Region Conservation Authority jurisdiction. I will note that the applicant was informed that they are outside of our jurisdiction and was requested to follow up with the Raisin Region Conservation Authority. But as Tim suggested, because the request is within a member paying municipality, we do like to let the committee decide whether or not to proceed with those sorts of applications. So that's why it's included for discussion. Thank you.
So the member municipality has asked for that grant on behalf of Camp Kagama.
No, that's not correct. They are within a member paying municipality within our watershed, which is why we're allowing the committee to review the application. So conversely, for example, if somebody applied within South Glengarry, we simply would reject them and tell them they're not within the jurisdiction.
Yeah.
Because they are within a municipality that does support the Conservation Authority, that's why it's included for discussion.
Supplementary, Tom?
Well, I'm confused. It's probably just me. How can we have a member municipality, a piece of territory in their jurisdiction being outside our jurisdiction?
We have several municipalities where their entire municipality has the jurisdiction of several conservation authorities. So while a majority of our municipalities are fully in our watershed, there are several, for example, South Stormont, where they have a majority of their jurisdiction being Raisin and a small portion being South Nation.
Okay, Tom?
I guess so, yeah. So a portion of the jurisdiction is our jurisdiction. A portion.
A portion of
I'm
South Stormont is our
Yeah.
jurisdiction.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm
the
going to
other
draw up a
portion
map
is
for reference in our committee
Sorry.
comments in the meeting.
Okay, I'm fine now, Mr. Chair.
Thanks. Now, I had other questions earlier, but I don't know the names. I see two hands up someplace. Was Jerry one?
No,
Byron.
one.
Byron, okay.
What's the meaning of a caliper-sized tree?
Excellent question. It's a larger tree. It's in a wire basket. It has a full root system. Typically, when you see trees being planted, if they're really big and they require an excavator, those are likely caliper-sized tree. When we refer to potted stock, those are trees we can go and get from a nursery, 5-10 gallon pots that we can pull out on our own. So typically a much larger, more expensive, older tree.
And Kagama is looking for one of those.
That's correct.
Are there other questions?
My personal feeling on this is that if it's part of a jurisdiction where SNC is involved with a municipality, and if they want to plant a tree, I would go ahead and support it personally.
John, did you say there is a precedent for this already?
There's a precedent to provide the information for a committee for discussion. Tim did note that we have previously funded the bird sanctuary, which is similarly very close to our jurisdiction boundary, but is not in our jurisdiction. It is within the Raisin region. So the precedent is that we provide the information to committee for discussion, and you are able to reject or approve that. I see questions from Tom and Charles, Mr. Chair.
Okay, Charles is the one I note, and then we'll go to the other one. Charles?
Okay. Does the Raisin River Conservation Authority have a similar tree grant program to us?
No, they do not.
So we are the only available funding body for such things in this area of South Stormont.
Yes, in addition to NGOs that provide similar funding mechanisms for businesses and schools to plant trees.
Yes, okay, but there's always NGOs, you know, they're throughout the entire world, so that's not a problem. But in this case, we are the only public body that provides such funding.
Correct.
Thank you.
Tom, thanks very much, Charles. Do you have another question, Tom?
Yeah, I want to ask John how he feels about this. Are you concerned at all, John, about potentially extending a precedent that we already set, possibly with the bird sanctuary? Although I'm not really convinced because this municipality is at least partly within our jurisdiction. Are you okay with this?
To be clear and to be careful, obviously it is the committee's decision how to best use these particular funds. From a staff perspective, we want to make sure that the money we collect from residents and municipalities in our region is redirected and reinvested within our region. The precedent with the bird sanctuary, you might recall, we did fund them on 2 occasions for this grant. And at the last request, the committee directed staff to issue them a letter notifying them that future requests needed to be made to their conservation authority.
Thank you very much.
I see one other question, John.
I see one other question. I don't know who it is.
Charles has his hand back up.
Charles?
My error, didn't bring my hand down.
Okay, then here's what I'm going to suggest to accommodate, that we remove Camp Kagama and we vote on the other 2, and then we deal with it separately, and everyone will be able to have their say on that one. Does that sound okay?
Agreed.
then I would probably need a motion to remove Camp Kagama for a later vote. Moved by Tom, seconded by Jerry. And any objection? Then we are now duly moved and the mover and seconder agree with doing this, just these two? I think the answer is yes. So we're now voting on the Russell District Historical Society's request and the Eco East request. Are there any objections? Seeing none, we've approved those two. Now, I would like a motion to deal with the Camp Kagama request, and we'll get everybody's opinion or vote on that. Does that sound like the best way? Looking for a mover and a seconder. Moved by Byron, seconded by Tim, that we deal with this particular Camp Kagama. Is there any further discussion before we take the vote? And John, how do you suggest we do this? Do we do it by voice so we know exactly where people are? Because I don't want to miss anyone with the way it's set up. Or can we go on what you can see on your screen better than mine?
I think if it's okay, we can do the hands raised function. I can read off the summary, Bill, before we move from movers to dissenters. But if there's interest, we could also do a roll call.
Okay, so we'll do it by hands unless there's an objection. Seeing none, are you ready for the question? Those in favor of giving the $300 Camp Kagama request out? Hands up.
At this time, Mr. Chair, I see Doug, Tim, Byron, Tom, and Jerry. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
And Bill.
And Bill 6.
Thank you. Those that say no, show hands.
I read one from Charles, but I note that there are 2 members that may not have voted.
So 1 against. Are there any abstainers? Can you indicate your hand if you have abstained? Are you seeing any hands, John?
Yes.
Okay, so it is approved. Am I correct?
That's correct, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for that thorough discussion. Is there anything else from the supplemental that has to come up, John?
No, that's everything. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, and number 8, the round table. And Mr. Chair, John, if you can take over as chair, I have to be in Winchester at 11:15, which is going to be close for me. So may I excuse myself at this stage and you look after number 8?
Absolutely. Thank you, Mr. Chair, and good luck on your appointment. And thanks for rejoining us after your power outage.
I apologize for that outage. I've never had that happen before. The best to all of you, and we'll see you at the next meeting. Thanks a lot.
See you, Bill.
And again, if I could just get a nod or some thumbs up on support for me proceeding as interim chair. Okay, thank you, everyone. So we will do our roundtable discussion. Again, this is a good time for us to just provide general updates to each other on anything that's been ongoing or coming up in our communities. And of course, it's also a good avenue to present any additional items for discussion or any recommendations for Friends of SNC volunteers or otherwise. So I'll do this by show of hands. So if you don't mind putting up your hand if you have a discussion item to share, and I'll call upon you in the order that I see the hands raised. We'll start with Byron.
Well, the only thing, and you know about this already, John, is the cross-country ski situation here in the Plantagenet area, where we have absolutely nowhere to go. And there seems to be growing interest in trying to secure something in the area. So that's the only thing that I can bring up at this point.
Thank you, Byron. It's a good comment. It's something that Shannon Gutowski and I are going to be working on the next few weeks. We do intend to put out a memo to all of our partner member municipalities to let them know about the winter recreation activities that we support and we promote during the winter, including winter trail grooming, especially at some of our municipal partner sites. And we hope that this is going to spur some discussion and interest for some of our municipalities that don't have any offerings or might be interested in picking a municipal trail or local trail that should or could be groomed in the winter to support these activities. And either way, Byron, will engage with Alfred Plantagenet to have a meeting to discuss that.
Would it help if I put a seed into one of the councillors for the township?
You know that's always helpful and appreciated.
You'll get it.
Okay, thank you, Byron.
I just had a question in response to that. Is cross-country skiing on the South Nation River possible? Maybe if you don't have other trails in the area, that might be a great and relevant way to get your cross-country skiing in when the ice is safe.
Well, that's where it happens right now, Tim. Yeah. But the problem is that if you're going to go on 10 inches of snow and you have to forge through it without it being groomed, it becomes a very difficult trail to, number one, do the first run, but number two, to keep it groomed.
Yeah, that's correct. We also had a fairly good discussion at our July in-person meeting about winter recreational activities and using some of our river access sites and how we promote the use of the river in the winter when we know that we only monitor ice thickness at several of our monitoring stations. So there are some risks and concerns involved with supporting that type of activity, not to say it's not possible or a good use of the river, but I think where we can find trails that could easily be groomed, especially with the equipment that we already have at SNC, which does a good job in compacting the trail and making it good for cross-country skiing. We want to see if we can find some additional sites. So that's definitely top of mind for us, Byron. I'll go to next Murray, and then we'll follow Murray with Doug.
Thank you, Mr. Acting Chair. I'd just like to put in for the community engagement. The volunteers of Oak Valley Pioneer Park are planning a fall field day wrap up on October 16th. And everyone's welcome to come join us and prepare the park for winter. Thank you.
Thank you, Murray. That's great to hear. We'll get those details added to our calendar as well. And I assume if I can line up a few volunteers for you, that they'd be welcome at that day as well.
Yes, they would.
Okay, thank you. I'll reach out and I'll see who I can secure to help you guys out. I'll also note that I did receive your thank you letter to staff and to some of the volunteers that helped out with your last annual general meeting and cleanup day at the park. And of course, whenever we can, Murray, we're always happy to get out and help you guys out. And we conversely are very supportive of the work that you guys do year round at the park. So we are still hoping to get out for a few days this fall to manage some additional trees that Carol marked with you guys, I think with you and Lester there a few weeks ago. So we're looking to schedule some days in October, and if we can coincide them with your field day, I think that might be that might work out well.
That sounds good.
Perfect, thank you. Okay, we'll go Doug next, and for those that haven't raised your hand, you're welcome to, so I can call you on you after.
I just had a quick question first for Murray to see if he needs donuts for that day, Murray. Well, yes, he's not.
We always welcome your contributions, Doug, and if you'd like to add lunches for everyone, we'd welcome that too.
Are you making the donuts, Doug?
No, but I'm working with a limited budget this year. I put on this flashy shirt this morning because I thought I would be #1 in men's attire, but John has outdone me. So I guess I'd play second fiddle again to you, John.
Oh no.
That's the way the world goes. I had a quick question that's sort of related. The Greeley Community Association got a grant to plant a tree from South Nation, and we've had to delay it, but we're going to do it this year. What is the size? I just want to clarify without going back and looking at the at our application. What's the size that we're required to plant?
Yeah, great question, Doug. And there really is no sizing requirements. The requirements is that you plant native trees, and however best you can use the money is up to you in consultation with us. Obviously, there's lots of partners that have planted like 3 smaller trees with the money, or they've just used all the money to get a big tree and a perfect site.
Yeah, Chris Craig has offered to help us out with finding the appropriate tree. So, okay, thanks very much. That was my question.
Lots of flexibility on that one, Doug. Thank you. And didn't mean to supersede your outfit or
I do like
the
your
best
shirt,
outfit.
I think it's pretty cool.
I think you should have let us know, Doug, so maybe we could have all coordinated outfits because yours is pretty flashy. For other comments, if anyone else is interested in sharing, I don't have to call on you, but if you'd like to raise your hand or make a nod, I mean, you're welcome to share any additional comments with the group. Okay, well, we'll close it there. We will intend to get our meeting minutes together within the next hour so we can get them to the board of directors who are meeting tomorrow. Our expectation is we will be able to review and endorse some of the action items from today's meeting at tomorrow's board meeting. At this time, we don't have any correspondence to share with the group, and we note the date of our next meeting being November 17th, 2021. We have received some requests or questions from committee members about the time of future meetings. So we might circulate a poll just to see if there's interest in adjusting the start time of our next meeting. I will know that Jerry Boyce is back to driving the school bus, and so he's having some challenges meeting the 9 a.m. start time. So we'll circulate a poll, and if you guys can try and respond in the next week or so, just to figure out if there is a better time that we can maybe meet in November. And then depending on where things bring us, we'll intend at this point to do this online, but if there's a possibility to do it in person, I think most members are supportive of that as well. So we can update you closer to the date if that's okay.
Yeah, we missed lunch.
Yeah, we do miss lunch.
Yeah, we could do a virtual lunch. Everybody could bring something, eat online.
That would be fun. Some of us might get jealous over who has the better lunch. It's always nice
bring you some of my wife's apple and raspberry muffins.
Yeah, exactly.
Who has the better lunch?
Yeah.
This would be like getting dressed up.
Yeah. Well, we'll have to do something special for our November meeting. I know the theme is going to be very budget heavy. So whether it's food or outfits, let's see what we can do to, bring a positive note to the meeting.
I do want to point out my Johnny Cash shirt. I think it should be considered.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
You might take the win on that, Tom. I wish I'd seen that earlier.
I think
we could do an ugly Christmas sweater meeting.
John, you're number 1, I'm number 2, and Tom is number 3.
I'll make a note to dress down next meeting.
3? Yeah. No, I'll take 3.
When you're number 3, you try harder, right?
That's right.
Well, with that, committee members, we will move on to agenda item 11, which is adjournment. I'm looking for a mover and seconder. Moved by Doug, seconded by Byron. The recommendation is the Communications Committee meeting of September 15th be adjourned at 11:14 a.m. All in favor? Thank you, everybody. That's carried. We will see you in November one way or another, and you can expect some updates by email as we move forward with planning out some of these fall events.
Excellent.
Great. Thank you, everyone. Have a good day. Enjoy the rest of your week.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, everyone. Take care.
Hey, see you guys.